this is a headline from the BBC, and it reads, "The United States wants to see a weakened Russia." So you can see here Secretary of State Blinken and Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Defense Secretary, meeting with Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, in Ukraine, in Kiev. And so they're saying U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he hopes Russian losses in Ukraine will deter its leadership from repeating its actions elsewhere. And at a news conference in Poland after the visit, Mr. Austin told reporters that the U.S. wants to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine. Thank you so much for, again, saying the quiet part out loud, because what they're trying to hide from you in the media, they're lying to you about Ukraine. What they're trying to hide from you is the fact that what's happening in Ukraine is a proxy war. The United States, NATO, are trying to antagonize Russia. They're trying to weaken Russia. They're not my words. Those are the words of the U.S. Defense Secretary. They are trying to weaken Russia. So this idea that, oh, we have to defend Ukraine's sovereignty, we have to protect Ukraine, this is nonsense. They don't care about Ukraine. If they cared about Ukraine, they wouldn't have poked Russia and tried to encircle it with NATO bases and made sure that the Minsk agreements are not followed. They wouldn't still be sending weapons to Ukraine, adding fuel to the fire. This is not diplomacy. So they are sacrificing Ukraine as a pawn to annoy Russia, to weaken Russia. And again, in his own words, here's the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Listen to him. Listen what he says.
As far as we can, as quickly as we can, to get them what they need. We want to see Ukraine remain a sovereign country, a democratic country, able to protect its sovereign territory. We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine. So it has already lost a lot of military capability and a lot of its troops, quite frankly. And we want to see them not have the capability to very quickly reproduce that capability. We want to.
Remember, Lloyd Austin, for those of you who don't know, he is currently the U.S. Defense Secretary, but the day before he took the job, do you know where he was working? He was a board member at the weapons manufacturer Raytheon. Look it up. It's, open knowledge. So this guy has a vested interest. He has a financial incentive to continue wars, to wage wars, and make sure they last as long as possible, because he and his friends at Raytheon make money from these wars. And you can just simply look up the stocks, Raytheon stocks, and how they've skyrocketed after the war in Ukraine began. Look at this. So this is just in the last year. You can see how starting from February, they've gone up from $93 a share all the way to $104, and then back to $99. I mean, this is something that you're going to see with Northrop. Let's look up Northrop. Or Lockheed Martin is another one. All of their stocks are up. How about BAE Systems, the British arms manufacturer? How are they doing? Stocks are up. I mean, this is obvious. These people make money from war. There's nothing surprising there. But just remember who is running the government. These people from these corporations are running the government, not guys who are striving for peace. They have a vested interest, and they are saying the quiet part out loud here. And I want to show you a clip from Lavrov, who's the Russian foreign minister, because this is dangerous. It's not just about, oh, this is morally reprehensible. You shouldn't be prolonging wars just to make money because you're killing people. Yes, obviously. This is the problem is that in addition to that, they're leading us down a very dangerous road. And perhaps he says it better.
Совсем недавно, в январе уже нынешнего года, реализовалась еще одна наша инициатива в этом же направлении. Вся пятерка постоянных членов Совета Безопасности ООН в привязке к планируемому началу обзорной конференции договора о нераспространении ядерного оружия сделала заявление такого же содержания. Все 5 лидеров подписались под констатацией недопустимости ядерной войны. И это наша принципиальная позиция, мы из нее исходим. И, конечно, мне очень не хотелось бы, чтобы сейчас, когда, как вы и сказали, ссылаясь на Грэма Эллисона и других уважаемых политологов, когда действительно риски весьма и весьма существенные, очень не хотелось бы, чтобы эти риски искусственно раздувались, а желающих таких немало. Опасность серьезная, она реальна, ее нельзя недооценивать.
You know, a potential nuclear war is no joke. And I don't need to remind you, Russia has more nuclear weapons than any other country. The quantity is not really the point here. But, you know, these sorts of actions, you don't know where they go. Germany has gone from a quote-unquote neutral country to now a country that's rearming and sending heavy weapons to the Russians. I mean, at what point does this become critical in the sense that the Russians could seriously consider nuclear war? It's really a gamble because you don't know at the beginning. Oh, we're just sending non-lethal aid. Oh, we're just sending a bunch of NLAWs or javelins. Oh, we're just sending defensive weapons. Oh, now we're sending heavy weapons. You don't think at one point the Russians might look at that and say enough is enough, and then, you know, this obviously could lead to a much more serious escalation, because the whole idea is that even in the Cold War, the Americans and the Russians, they never fought directly, right? Because a direct confrontation would mean World War III, would mean a nuclear holocaust, a nuclear apocalypse. And now they're acting like this is a joke. You know, when the German chancellor says, I don't want to send heavy weapons to Ukraine because we might provoke Russia and then it leads to World War III, they laugh at him. They say, this is not a taboo idea. Everybody's sending heavy weapons. Come on. You don't want to be a Kremlin agent, do you? And then he capes, of course. But do you see how the rationale is irrational? The conventional wisdom now is that it's okay to risk a nuclear war. I'm not kidding. I see people all the time. I'm not talking about like random people on the internet. I'm talking about people in positions of power, in positions of influence, journalists, reporters, commentators, politicians that are you know, they're gambling with this idea of nuclear war. They think that it's a joke, that it's not serious, that if Russia hasn't used nuclear weapons until now, that it won't, and it never will, and that this is, you know, it's something to be scoffed at or laughed at. Look at this. One example of what I'm talking about. This is a retired 4-star general from the U.S. Army, and he's on with Nicole Wallace. Again, it's MSNBC, but let's take a look.
Quote, the Russian amped up nuclear threat is hard to fathom. I've dealt with nuclear strategy much of my life. A Putin threat of nuclear deployment after a failed conventional invasion is bizarre, illogical, not credible, madness. Russia could not survive.
From an intellectual viewpoint, and I have dealt with this issue throughout much of my adult life. You know, at the height of the Cold War, there were like 20,000 nuclear weapons on each side. It was utter madness, but it was stable. It was deterrence. They were never used. There was never a shot fired in Europe. Now we've got a lot less nuclear weapons in a lot more hands, and it's getting unstable. So Foreign Minister Lazaroff and Putin making these outrageous, irresponsible threats with nuclear weapons, it's hard to fathom. Either Putin's starting to unravel, some of that's true, a lot of it's undoubtedly a complete bluff, but it's horrendously unsettling. I mean,
what is he saying? He says that Putin's gone mad or it's just a bluff. Do you want to find out? Do you really want to find out if it's a bluff? It's not a fucking poker game. You really want to find out? You want to call this guy's bluff? Again, you can completely hate Russia and hate Putin. I don't care about that. I'm talking about the human race, man. You have multiple countries, given the UK and France. You know, we have multiple nuclear powers messing with each other here. This is not funny. And they keep saying, yeah, we'll just send a few weapons and then it becomes bigger, you know, higher caliber and so on. And I feel like they keep testing the waters, you know? They keep trying to test the limits and see how far they can go. And my point is that this is dangerous because it's not only disgusting that they're making money from it and they're prolonging the war and sacrificing Ukrainians, but it could very well lead to a larger confrontation, even though they claim, oh, it's indirect. How do you know the Russians won't change their minds the next day, or you do something that's genuinely an indication that it's not indirect, you're actually directly involved? This is my point, and it's very reckless and it's very dangerous. And all of this just so we can weaken Russia. Do you not have anything better to do? How many fucking bombs do you have to sell? How much money do you have to make before you stop? What's the end game? How many wars do these people have to do before they quit and they've had enough and they're satisfied? This is something that like a dying empire says. You know what I mean? The United States is so afraid of losing its position as the world hegemon that the acts of desperation start to increase. And I really hope that it doesn't implicate us all, because it's already implicating many millions of Ukrainians. And it's already tragic and bad enough. And the United States, they simply have to accept that we're transitioning to a multipolar world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Trying to destroy the planet just to avoid that, I think is extremely reckless. And, I don't think the Russians are bluffing. I really don't think they're bluffing. And again, it doesn't matter what you think. It's just you don't want to find out. This is not something that you should be gambling with. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to spell it out, but apparently I do. And this is the norm on Western mainstream media. Like, don't worry about the nuclear war. It's fine. They're just bluffing. It's the Russians. They lie all the time. I don't want to find out, man.